today is something out of the DC Miniature Universe, and we're just going to run a game. It's more of an intro game, a little bit of a play about, and before we get any further, let's lay down the ground rules. As this was just an intro game, I've just decided to go 4 rounds, which means that each side puts forward 4 tokens, and they go into the Bag of Destiny and pulled out randomly, and that's whose turn it is. Let's have a look at the teams. So bringing up the good guys, Hal Jordan. So the Green Lantern Hal Jordan, a nice level 12 hero. We've got the marker on his health. Comes jacked with a lot of powers, mostly obviously around the ring. He gets to fire blasts, he gets to make constructs, and he gets to grab and throw for free. Well, he gets a free grab and throw. He doesn't get to grab and throw for free, but he gets an additional grab and throw at strength 4, which is going to be useful. Because as you can see, these are the bad guys. Dun dun dun. Well, everyone's talking about them, so let's bring them in. Parademons. And they're nice and evenly weighted. Jordan is 12, 2 6s, 1 flies, 1 does not. And they're both strength 3, which is useful. A quick look at the board and placement. The lampposts are going to be considered 3s, just because they're tied down. Cars are 3s. The buildings will be 5s. So no one will be picking up buildings today, but they'll be definitely thrown into them. Jordan's in his corner, and they get to deploy outside of their deployment zone, which will be back here, and they get to go here and there. So that's okay. Like I said, just a quick battle, get a few games under our belt before we really get into it. Someone like Darkseid has a lot of powers, Superman's got a lot of powers, so it makes it difficult sometimes. Alright, let's move. It's worth noting that this is a game that uses D8s, and so we've just got our D8s laying around ready to be used. Everyone has power, these little values that allow the characters to do their actions. Put that on the 7. It's playing with something earlier. Now Jordan's got power of 8, but at full health he gets a +1 power. So at the moment he's got 9. The health bar is in 3 zones. Full health, the pale zone, the dark zone. Same thing over here with everyone else, but their values are obviously different. You also see that there are 3 different colours for actions. Green, do it as often as they've got power. The blue/grey, sometimes it comes up grey. That is once per turn, once per combat round, and the red is once per game. So over here, Jordan's got a couple of cool powers, constructs, a green Gatling, so it builds a giant Gatling gun, but once per game, and a big green blast. Energy field. So this is a reaction, so as he gets attacked, he gets to be able to roll, he gets to pay the power cost and do it at the moment, otherwise it's an action. And you've got passive, which just means that it's always on. They don't have to activate it. So even if you've got a 0, you may have to activate it. but if it's passive, you don't have to activate it at all. And reactive, obviously, as I said, so he gets to do a reaction. I did forget to mention that the yellow was Jordan and the black was the Parademons. So Jordan goes first. Looking at his card, you can see that he's got speed 4, 7, 12. That's how fast he can walk, run, fly, at a cost of 1, 2 and 3 respectively. So the first thing that Hal's going to do is move, and he's going to fly, which puts 12 inches down and takes him to the edge of that, because he needs to be in range of that to be able to shoot. So he's going to use his once per round ability to use willpower for the very next attack, and he's going to spend 3 points to fire an energy blast. Looking at his stats, his green blast has an 8 range. I'll have to check to see if it's in range. And this is what we're talking about here, power of will. The character's next attack uses willpower. His willpower is 12 instead of his attack of 6, which will buff to 7. Still 12. So yep, he's in range. And we've also decided that the Green Lantern is going to overload this attack. Which gives an extra die being rolled. And more chance of a crit. No crit this time round, but a definite hit. 12 for the willpower plus 4, 7 and 2. That's a big hit. Inflicting 3 damage on Parademon 1. Parademon also has resistance of 1, so it takes 2 damage. So the Parademon has the fly rule, which means it ignores pretty much everything, but used an 8-inch move, used its run move, in effect, or 2 power, to get here, so that it can launch an attack on Jordan. With 4 power remaining, not going to overpower, just go for 2 claw attacks. Each claw attack costs 2 power. Attack number 1. And misses. Attack number 2. Also misses. Rolling 2d8 plus the attack. Has to equal or better that. So the average of two 8-sided dice being rolled is 9. So they're going to have to lift their game a little bit. So our land-based Parademon is going to run, placing him there, or along that line. And then spray attack. So Jordan needs to make an agility check or suffer full damage. His agility is 8, so we have to roll under that on 2d8, which we do. So that causes Hal Jordan to take 1 point of damage instead. Which, if he wanted to, he could spend his 2 points to reduce it to 0 because of the energy field. But that's a once per game effect, which we're not going to do. He'll just cop the 1 damage. Then it's clean up. See if anyone's in the power zone, they might get knocked out. Oops, a daisy. Or in the dark zone. But no one is. The Bag of Destiny tells us Parademons. Reset everybody's counters. Yes, the flying Parademon only had started with 6. I thought he started with 7. But we did make that adjustment. Parademons go first. So the demon does a claw and a fire spray, which is a total of 5 power. And we'll get to the attack. The claw. To 6, no. And yes to the spray. Jordan's got to make an agility check to the half damage. Hal Jordan's agility check. 9, which he doesn't make. He's got an agility of 8, so he takes 2 damage. So Jordan's going to use his once per round ability to use willpower. Then he's going to grab the Parademon with his ring and throw him against the wall over there. Parademon can fly, so it's not a fall after that, it's just a straight down drop. And then blast if there's enough power to do a green blast and maybe overcharge. We'll see how that power works out, all from standing there. The grab. So that hits. 9 plus 12, 21. Well past the Parademon 16. So the Parademon has been picked up by the ring, thrown into the building. The ring throws with a strength 4, so suffers 3 damage, drops. If the Parademon didn't have flight, then the drop would also have been a fall, which would have added some more damage. So the Parademon will take 3 damage, adjusted to 2 because of the physical defense. Takes Jordan's power to 6. He fires his blast, overpowering it, gives him 2 left, enough to move out of the way or move somewhere else. We'll do the blast. So he's got an attack of 7, and we're rolling 3 dice because we're overpowering it. The Parademon has a +1 to physical defense, so Jordan is changing the attack to energy projection, so he's going to spend a power to change it to energy. So that's now the cost of the green blast, overpowering, and changing it. Oh, it's already energy, sorry, so he's not changing it physical. So yeah, so it's just the overpowering, so it's just 4 points. So he's down to 2 power remaining. And that is a hit. Now if any of these dice duplicate in any way, that's a crit, and a crit does an automatic damage. That just does 1 more damage. It's straight up. You always take 1 damage with the crit. So the benefit of overpowering is that there's more chance of an extra number, but if you roll 2 or more of the same number, then that's a crit, which is just an extra damage, unless there's a special crit effect inside the weapon effects or power effects. And with some attacks, instead of overloading it for the extra damage or the extra attack die, you can overload it to have another effect. But in this instance, we're just doing that. Right, so that's a hit for 3 damage, and giving Jordan still 2 points left. So the Parademon took 2 damage from the throw, and 2 damage from the green blast, lingering along that edge there. So moving, he's done that back here. So he's ran, in effect, used his run movement to come back here and stay out of line of sight of ground guy. So you can see how ground versus flight, there's some advantages, disadvantages. But we'll see what happens next. Not being able to attack or do anything, he's just moved in contact with the car. The car's a size 3, by the way. So state of play after the second round. Alright, so we've only got 2 rounds left. Jordan. Okay, so Parademons go. We've got 1 KO'd. We've got 1 that's moved over to here with a walk. Try not to knock everything over. And hits Jordan with the flame breath. Fails the agility check, and this time he's going to spend his 2 power, because it's the last round, to absorb the 2 points of damage. For the rest of this round, he's got resistance, energy, and physical of 2, so they take off 2 points for every attack. Now's the good time to do it. So it does nothing this round. Hal Jordan has moved from there to there. He's now going to throw this guy to the top of this building here, causing him to also drop down there to take falling damage. And he'll use his once per round ability to use willpower instead of his attack. So starting with a base 12 for his willpower, rolling, and that's also a crit. It hits successfully, and he rolled double, so that's an extra damage point. Okay, let's do this. One, two, three, four. However, Hal's not finished yet. So he's still got 3 power left, which he's going to use to blast the guy as well. So you can't overload it. And he's just got to do a normal attack with his attack of 7 adjusted versus a 15, needing an 8 or higher on 2d8. Hal Jordan hits, 3 energy damage, which goes to 2. And places Parademon in the power zone. So now we're up to the final phase, because everyone's done their bit. This one's knocked out, can't recover until the end of the round. This one has already acted for this moment, but is knocked down. Sweet. Alright. So just do the final phase cleanup, which is knockout, and recovery. First the knockout. Parademon 3 has a stamina of 9, which makes us not knocked out, but is still currently knocked down, meaning that if we were to continue the next round, which we're not, then we would have to spend 1 power to stand up before doing anything else. It's just a 1 power tax. And every other power that needs to be activated is currently turned off. Anything that's passive still remains, but anything that has to be turned on, or that can be turned on, is off. Now for Parademon 1, who's currently knocked out, and makes it. Wakes up. Alright. So at the end of the round 4, after the final cleanup, we've got 1 Parademon that's knocked down, or they're both knocked down, and they're both in the power zones. So every round they have to check to see whether they get knocked out. When you're in the blue zone, or the dark zone, every time you take damage you have to check. So even if you take only 1 damage, someone like Hal, not so much in whether you got 2, but some characters have quite a large dark blue zone. So here in the power zone, at the end of every round, you roll to see whether you get knocked out. In the blue zone, it's every time you take damage, as well as at the end of the round. So if you only take 1 damage, you check immediately, and then at the end of the round, you get knocked out. Then you get attacked, you lose 1 point, you check immediately, then you check at the end of the round. So it just forces more checks. Whereas that one's the once per round. Once you're knocked out, at the end of every round, you then wake up, attempt to wake up. Hopefully I haven't confused anybody. It's actually a very interesting game. The mechanics are quite good. The bags of mystery is always fun, just because that adds that level of unknown to what's going to happen. You might have 8 counters in there, 4 on each side, or 12 counters, 6 on each side. You still don't know who's going to be going next and how many counters are left. In terms of, you could still pull out 2 or 3 in a row of the same team. Anyway, cool. Hopefully I've showcased it a little bit. It's a good game to get into. It's Knight Models, DC Universe miniatures game. The rules are online. If you can get your hands on the miniatures, they're very good. Some of the metal ones, the older metal ones, can be a bit hard to put together, and some of the finer ones now with their new resin can be a bit twitchy, just in terms of that they've got very thin connectors. But all up, it's a solid miniature game. You can get away with 5, 6, 7 models. You don't need to have 100 models on the board. Everything's in levels. So generally a game is about 50 or 60 levels, 6 parademons, and Darkside is 61 levels. So that's about as big as you want to get, 61. If you start getting into the higher level games, like with more power, then it just becomes a lot to work out. That might be a 2-player game. If you go over 60, if you go over that 60 mark, it might be worthwhile having 2 players on each side, because you're looking at probably 7 to 8 models on each side, which is a lot. As you can imagine, there's a few rules for some of the characters, and you've always got to keep an eye on what you're doing. And you got general strategies. When you look at Hal Jordan, he does throw things around, and he does pick things up and chuck them about, which is good, because that's what you want. Following it up by an energy blast. Awesome. Alright, well, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, all the other bits and pieces. I hope to do a few more of these, and it's very good to get some feedback, so please do so. I just want to know that I'm on the right track. We've got a few items on the channel that we're trying to promote and push forward. I've done a lot on one section. I just want to try and get the others to balance out a little bit as well. Alright, well, thank you again. I appreciate your time.